Welcome, everybody, to the Tarot Flow Show, where synchronicity is the star, all those fun coincidences, and we are just the witnesses to it and the interpreters of it and all that good stuff. It is my pleasure, as always, to welcome my co-host who is in Stockholm, Sweden, the students of all things spiritual. Welcome, please, Kefri Skarabus. Welcome,
you, Alison. Fun to be here, as usual.
Thank you for joining us as always. And tonight we have our very special guest. And I have to say that this is someone who I met very recently. We were in kind of similar circles, but had never met face to face. And I had only seen him do a little video piece, one where he was enumerating his various things that he could teach. And he started going through this list of complex and high-level skills that are very intimidating to me for the first thing, very masculine skills like military skills and survival skills and camping skills and outdoor things. And I'm like this hermit living in a cave, with my little books and stuff. And so I was in awe of this gentleman who has so many amazing skills. He's also an advocate for seniors and does a lot of work around assisted living and the needs of those who are approaching, as all of us are, the geriatric years. And so let us welcome this very nice gentleman who has so much to offer and still is developing his talents to offer them to the world. And this is Paul. Thank you, Paul, for joining us today. Welcome to the stage, so to speak.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Kefri. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction.
Welcome.
It's my pleasure, and I know that I've only scratched the surface of who you are as a deep human being, and I thank you for being here today. All this does is show what a breadth and extensive, range of skills and interests that you have, because this is not the most natural, let's say, exploration thing for your basic Marine or whatever. So.
No, I don't think it's within the realm of orthodox anything. Sometimes,
There you go.
You got to branch out. You got to get out of that box, so to speak.
True enough. Thank you very much. Tell us a little about yourself and your history.
Oh my goodness. So,
if you like, whatever you want to share.
God, I don't know where to start. So, grew up in Houston, Texas, but I spent my high school years in Florida. My parents moved there, and my dad passed away when I was 13 years old.
Oh.
He had passed away from emphysema. He was 60 when I was born. 60 when I was born. So I kind of grew up with people who grew up. Both my parents kind of grew up in the Depression era. At least my dad did, and so that kind of I grew up with that mentality, and that I didn't grow up with the typical generation of people who were like in the 60s and 70s, the hippies, so to speak. I didn't grow up in that group. I grew up before that group, so to speak. But if you don't mind, an interesting story about my dad. My dad was a salesman, during the Depression, we're talking the 20s, and he went between Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas, and he sold violin lessons door to door, and that's how he made his money in the Depression. So he's selling violin lessons to people who really didn't have the money, but again, the gift of music is how I look at it. You give the gift of music, and so that's what he did. He gave that gift of music to people, and then 30 days later, the violin teacher would come through town and give the lesson.
That's amazing. And that is not the easiest thing to sell in a time when people are reduced to just the basics. You talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and everything, and, music lessons. For those of us who love the arts and everything, that might be considered an essential, but for most of people who are hand to mouth, it's not. And you have to have the instrument as well.
Yeah.
So well done on your dad if he was able to raise the family and make it happen like that. Good for him.
Yeah, he made something happen. So a little before my time, but yeah, he did good. And after high school, went in the military for 4 years, did some tours around the world with the Marines, and then moved back to Florida. Shortly after that, I joined the U.S. Border Patrol and served 7 years with the Border Patrol agent, patrolling the areas of South San Diego, the mountains of San Diego, and the deserts of El Centro was my main area where I worked at. And then realized government life wasn't really for me, so I kind of branched out and went on my own, and now I work in the IT world, and now we're trying to branch out in other worlds.
Fascinating. You have seen all kinds of aspects of the human character, and then that Depression era poverty and the people who you saw kind of trying to come in over the border and things like that, it must have made you think about so many things economic. I can only imagine.
It did, and and I guess the good thing is traveling with the Marines, going overseas, seeing various different people and their economic structure. I mean, spent some time in Somalia, and that was, again, people. You talk about living in poverty, right? And it was an eye opener. But I had a coaching I had a live session on Saturday with one of a good friend of mine, also a coach of mine, and we were talking about that a little bit. And I go, that's kind of where I learned a lot about humanity was over there in that country, because I realized we're all the same. There's really no difference between any of us.
Thank you. And in terms of esoteric things, so from that military world over into this total unorthodox esoterica, things like that, is there anything you want to share about your explorations there and what brought you to ask for a tarot reading, or to you accept my inflicting a tarot reading on you?
No, it's a lot of it's curiosity, right? But I've had tarot readings before. I've had aura readings before, and there's alignment, and it's like they'll do the reading, and you'll see a parallel that's going on either just in my past or coming up, or currently my current whatever's currently present for me at the time. And so I'm open to it, because I look at it as a guide. Sometimes I look at it as the word escaped me, kind of agreement to what is going on right now in my life, so to speak. So sometimes a question, like when we had our mastermind, I posted on the mastermind, I was like, I didn't feel like I was running the right place. And so sometimes it's like I'm on a path, I'm on a journey, and for whatever reason, I feel like, okay, maybe this is not the journey, maybe this is not the path. But then I'll do a tarot reading and say, okay, I'm on track. And that's kind of where I need to trust the process and be more accepting and open to, even though I may not feel comfortable at the time, trust the process. Trust the process.
And isn't it all about all of us getting out of our comfort zone? And I have a feeling so much more of that than I have. I'm really stretching those muscles these days. And thank you for modeling it so beautifully. And then you're following the synchronicities, which is the advice of a lot of people. And it's pretty good advice. That was Joseph Campbell talking about following your bliss. So hopefully these synchronicities are coordinated at some level with your bliss, and that we can help you along that way. And I certainly hope today's experience is worthwhile. So let's jump in, shall we?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And so here's what we're doing with Paul today. We're going to be taking a look at this flow here. And we had a chance to meet Paul very briefly. And then we're going to have him choose a number between 1 and 22 to look at a focus card. Then we're going to jump into the reading. And as always, as you know, readings are for your consideration. We are bopping along on our timeline, and once in a while we get a chance to consider what else is there in the now for us to contemplate as we are going. It's always now, isn't it, too? So we have to look at the now and glean as much as we can from it. For anybody who is interested in learning about tarot and doing some of our tarot talk and travel things that we have coming up, please go to ALISONPickering.com and we can get on the mailing list and join in with our fun activities, which will include some an academy to learn more about tarot. We'll have modules and stuff, and then we're going to have just some free activities and events, and then some travel for those of you who want to go to Italy to look at tarot origins, or just get on a ship and do some tarot activities while you lounge around and take a vacation. Otherwise, those are the kinds of things that we're going to be doing upcoming in 2024 and 2025 and beyond. So after that commercial interruption, here we go into our reading. And as you may know, we've got the journey of the Fool, who is this spirit unmanifest, who's willing to jump, and the 21 remaining major arcana. I have those here in front of me here. And Paul, there's 22 of them, as you know. I'm going to shuffle. And in a moment, would you give me a number between 1 and 22 and see which card we're going to pick out here to unpack?
Lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is the Emperor. Here we go. So let's take a look at our Emperor here. You mentioned earlier in an offline thing how the Empress, or the feminine function, is that source of creativity. Well, the Emperor is the structure. The Emperor is the there's Taurus the bull. You can notice Taurus on the throne there. The Taurus is I have. So there's that.
No, it's not. It's not Taurus, Alison. Sorry, it's Aries.
It is Aries. Thank you so much for correcting me.
You're
So the
welcome.
Aries is I will, which is even more relevant to this. So the creative function. So, and where is Taurus? Oh, Taurus is on the King of Pentacles. That's the last
No,
throne.
yeah, but Taurus are in the Hierophant actually.
As the astrological thing. Yes. Okay. There we go. So Aries, the ram, is on our emperor, who is in the rulership position. And look at all those fiery colors. The red of Gevura, or of Mars, is there, that martial function. That's that militaristic, the Mars planet. You can see that he's up high in the stony mountains on his stony throne. And so whereas the Empress in the creative function is kind of on a cushy pillow, the emperor he's armored up under his beautiful robe. You can see a map of Africa on his shoulder. What looks like that, in any case, is kind of interesting. And you're having had that experience in Africa is a fun synchronicity here. And then this kind of the draping of royalty is covering up the needing for him to be on the defense, girding his loins and being ready to do the function for which he is responsible, which is the defense, which is the rulership, which is the direction. And so he has the wand in the right hand, or the ankh, if you prefer, in his right hand. And then in his left hand is the orb, or the globe, representing the world. And so there's this idea of rulership. We can also notice that his eyes are kind of looking to the side, and that's also looking to the Empress and to the High Priestess, the feminine figures that are on either side of him, for his rulership and his decision making and his warlike nature to be informed by those feminine, creative, and receptive functions. And so that's another aspect of the emperor. What else could we say about the Emperor Khepri?
He is the number 4, and he is the structure of the square actually. And in the Kabbalistic tree of life, he is in the 4th Sephiroth, the energy point. And that is also connected to Jupiter and enlargement actually. And the secret symbol for this one is a window to look between the worlds, but not be a part of the other world, but be able to look into it actually, because he needs to be in his world and to rule there actually, because he needs to be in balance.
Okay.
Thank you. Paul, we've been using a very analytical kind of itemizing process looking at this card. Perhaps you have a more holistic impression or something that you get when you look at this card. What comes to mind when you look at the card?
I think what comes to mind is leadership, right? Authority, influence, right? So he has to have influence over whatever domain he's over, ruling over or something like that. So, but he has to combine all that to make it work, right? It all has to come in together as in a balance, like Khepri said, in a balance to make sure that everything flows right.
That's right. Khepri, watch out. We got a new co-host on the rise.
Yeah.
Our co-host is rising. Which is wonderful, because that's one of the beautiful things about tarot, is that how the images are so evocative, and how we do respond to them because we recognize them. We recognize them in ourselves. We recognize those qualities. We recognize the nature of that particular thing, and it helps us to just be wise as we incorporate those aspects into our own personality, or recognize them within our own personality as already very well established. And I sense that in you, Paul, as well. So that's just to kind of look at the one card. Let's take a look now and go into having looked now at these majors extremely briefly. The first row, the Magician to the Chariot, kind of depicting our internal capacity, is when that fool jumps into life, he's going to have a childhood, an upbringing, some relationships, some movement outside. And then the middle row could depict different lessons of adulthood, whether it's your passions, your solitude, the spinning of the luck law, sacrifice, big events coming through, the needing to figure out your own pathway with that temperance card. And then the bottom row, different kinds of states of consciousness. These are the big kind of soul lessons within the major arcana. We also have the minors, which are connected to the tree of life in that the wands are very high up in the tree. If we imagined the Kabbalistic tree of life like the giant champagne fountain from the source, as it emanates down, the first kind of level of little glasses that it's flowing past is this level of the wands, which is what we can kind of get access to through our intuition. It's our values. It's the thing that drives us, the fire that gets us going. That's up top. And if that notion that comes to us, say that inspiration is going to come to any fruition or any fleshly reality, it's going to need to be cared about. That's the next level down, and that's the cups. That suit there represents care and quest and emotional quality, our emotions. That's where a lot of our power of the subconscious lives. That's why it's important for us to get control of it in the thought process, in the rational process that's depicted in the Swords card. That's the planning, the breaking it down into a linear plan that can be executed, ideas and communication. We can see that in the Swords card. Look at the mission that Knight of Swords is on. He's got the plan. He's about to execute the plan. And the ideas are quite powerful. And then if anything's going to then really be carried out, it's going to happen in the flesh, so to speak. In the Pentacles is the representation of that physical realm. Why is it a pentagram? Because we have 5 senses. Our 5 senses are our currency to apprehend the world, to deal with the world. It's also the 4 elements plus the element of spirit. That's another depiction of the pentagram. But that's the reason for the 5. And the 6-pointed star is another aspect of the balance of heaven and earth. So each of these stars has significance. The 5-pointed star being our earthly currency. And we can also see that Knight of Pentacles is moving really slow. In fact, his horse is just standing there, or perhaps just walking very slowly, because we have to do things here on the earth plane in time. That's our software, so we don't explode from the chaos, perhaps. And that Pentacle card, or that Knight of Pentacles, is a very responsible one. He's another one who's, they're all armored up. But he has to guard the field to make sure that there's a crop, to make sure that the crows don't come pick it over, so that we all eat, so we don't starve. And so those kinds of functions are very important. You've probably witnessed starvation and people in that state firsthand. I can't imagine how heartbreaking that is, and how important it is to make sure that the cycles of agriculture and productivity can be there for people to reach their full potential. So those are the suits. And here's a quick look at the wands, the suit of fire, intuition and spark, the cups of emotion and relationships and calling, swords, air, thought, intellect, decision-making, planning, and then earth, resources, responsibilities, families, contracts, mortgages, all that kind of stuff, what we enter into. Notice the configuration of the coins in the 10. After that lady in the garden is this kind of homestead, multifamily situation there, and the coins are arranged in the shape of the Sephirot on the Kabbalistic tree of life there. So there's a representation of it. This is the reading we're going to be doing today with you, Paul, and that's going to be having whatever the issue at hand is on the top, and you can focus us, or we can just see what the cards put up. Okay. On the bottom, we have a little timeline. The timeline depicts a past, present, future, or it may be that this has already happened and we're looking at this thing that still influences you, but we have first this happened, and then that happened, and then this other thing happened. So we're seeing a vignette or a timeline, and then, or a storyline even, and then some on top left, we would have some cautionary advice. It might be best to avoid this aspect or this direction, and it would be better to use the direction on the top right, which is the supportive direction that would best move this forward for everybody's best benefit. And then towards the end, we'll pick a card for further perspective. And now is where I hand off to Kefri, who you see has been shuffling the cards and listening to this whole vibe and meeting you for the first time, I will hand off to him to coach us through this dealing up of the cards.
Thank you, Alison. And Paul, I am shuffling the cards and you say stop where you want to stop to be,
Okay.
please.
Stop.
There. And how many times do you want to cut the deck if you want to cut the deck?
3.
3. Thank
3.
you. 1 and 2 and 3. And then we will look at the subject card first in the middle,
Okay.
in the top row. And that is the 9 of Wands. Then we will go in the bottom row and look at the past card. And that is the Lovers card. Then we will go in the middle and look at the present. And that is the 5 of Cups. Then we will go and look at the future, and that is the King of Swords. Then we will go up here to the left and look at the cautionary card, what is not recommended to do at this time, and that is the Sun card. And then we will look at the advice card and what is good to do. And lo and behold and surprise, it is the Emperor. So there you have your reading.
I also laugh, because the last reading that we did just before you were here, Paul, the same thing happened where she picked a number and that was the Sun card, and that's the one that popped up in the advice card, and the same thing happened here as well. So that's fun. We enjoy the synchronicities. And let's go ahead and put up that 9 of Wands, if you don't mind, Kefri. So you'll also notice that Kefri is going to be deep in thought because each of the major arcana connects to a Hebrew letter. And so each of those letters has its own kind of meaning as a letter, and it has a mystical meaning, like the Emperor has that meaning of window. And the Sun, what is the meaning for Sun?
Head.
Head, and the meaning for the Lovers card?
It's a sword.
It's a sword. Okay, so we have those things to keep in mind. But then if you string those letters together, they can mean Hebrew words, they can mean other things. And so those might be relevant. So we'll see him kind of decoding that and scribbling that as I prompt him to put the cards up. And so thank you, Kefri, for being so multitasking and flexible in this.
You're welcome, Alison.
All right, so here you are. And I didn't even give you, the other laugh, Paul, was that I said you could tell us what this is about, but then I didn't give you a chance to tell us what you wanted it to be. So it's kind of like it's what it's popped up here. And so I'm going to read it how it occurs to me, unless you can see from this what it is. And if you can see from this what it is, go ahead and focus me, and then I'm going to
let you guide me on this one.
Okay.
This is definitely your realm.
I'm just going to say that you have nothing to be ashamed of. You are standing tall, and you have been through it. You have been through it, and you have stood by your values and lived by them. At various points in your life, those might have been different, or they may have been expressed differently, or recognized differently, or suppressed differently. I don't know. But here you are, and you've lived a life, and you can count among them all of your triumphs, as well as the one that's kind of holding you up now, that you're hanging on to. That's because you can see that you've incurred wounds, and you can see that you're still standing. And so
it's funny that you mentioned, you stated it that way a couple of years ago after I separated. My youngest son, I reached out to him one December, but the December after we separated, I reached out to him because, hey, let's go hang out. And he goes, "No, what, Dad? Not right now." And he said that, Mom's going through a rough time and I need to be with her right now. And then he made this statement, and it's never left my mind. He goes, "Dad, I know you're going to be okay. You can survive anything." And it's one of the most powerful things my kids have ever told me.
And it's so interesting that what he's asking you to survive is to be patient while he tends to his mother before he can come and reward you for your fatherly deeds. So he's asking you to set aside your needs even some more, and
Yep.
you've had to do that all along the line. And that's a difficult thing that men are frequently asked to do, to prioritize women's needs and women's delicacy and women's emotionality. And I was talking about no man bashing, and I don't want to be woman bashing, but let us acknowledge that men are often asked and demanded of and required, in order to be respected, to
Yep.
put aside their own emotional needs in favor of women's. And that's not an easy thing. And it's in the name of chivalry, and kind of like in the military, that you're supposed to lay down your life in the name of glory. So are you asked to lay down your needs in the name of gentlemanliness or something along those lines? And it feels difficult in an age of feminism to still do that. And it can be it can provoke resentment, and that's not where you want to be, but it perhaps is where you have been. And that's okay too. You know, it's all a natural outgrowth of a real situation. And we shouldn't idealize the pendulum swings of society's attitudes towards men and women, and idealize the current one simply because it's kind of different from how it used to be. It's not any more balanced than it was if it's way over here. And so let us come back to appreciate all you have been through, and just acknowledge all you've been through and what you have sacrificed.
Thank you.
That's not a thank you for your service. That's like a more global deal.
No, I know. Yeah, I know. Exactly. The whole gambit.
The whole
yeah, since day
gambit,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, lay down your entire life, to make the girls happy. And that's rough. So, and I don't want to make it a man versus women thing either, but I do feel, I get the feeling like that has been a large component of it. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why this week, or whatever we went through this past thing, felt a little weird, because like you had enough of it. I don't know. Maybe you need to be in a men's group for a little bit. That might be very validating. Yep. So maybe you are, and that would be a helpful thing. In any case, there's nothing wrong with speaking up for yourself and for the validity of your experience, and that validation that your son gave you. I hope that you are beginning to reconnect some more.
Yeah, we are. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So you're still standing. You're still a strong man. You have come to a place where you know who you are, and you know what you want to do. That may still be being defined, but the values aspect of it, the staff on which you lean, important spiritual staff that will never leave you. And so you may cleave to it.
Okay.
Whatever spiritual connection that is. The direction of it is very interesting. It's going towards Chokmah. I'll let Kefri speak to that.
Okay.
Chokmah being wisdom, yes?
Yeah.
Or later. It's okay. I was just saying that when you do your piece, I'm speaking to the 9 of Wands, and then the directionality.
The 9 of Wands is the foundation, actually, and Wands are in the highest world in the Tree of Life, the absolute world, and we can say that is the divine world. So there is a sort of a foundation formed by divine thoughts, I would say.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So continue to lean on that staff. Keep your head looking up. Keep looking up.
Okay.
I had a weird experience I considered a very spiritual experience, but the essence of it was that we as humans were all kind of down in this weird blender cup, and there was this very bubbly laughter coming from above. It was kind of a serpentine figure, and they were saying, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's like they were saying all of the details, they just don't matter. Keep looking up. Just keep looking up, and we'll keep helping, And so that was some of the gist of that, and perhaps that's something to keep in mind here. Let's take a look at. So you mentioned the separation. I imagine that this is still impacting your life. So I'm going to read that in this reading. Let's take a look, Kefri, at that Lover's card, please. And so here we have. I just got the hit that this choice indicated in the Lover's card was actually you leaving. Because the higher path was to not stay.
True. Yeah, it was.
And in fact, the man's looking at the woman and the woman's looking up, but in fact, you are the woman looking up, and she was the one looking at you, and you had to go with the angel and not with the partner. And so obviously you have children together. Obviously you were partnered. Obviously there was a lot that you had together, but this choice cannot have been easy. And it still is with you with that 5. So let's take a look, Kefri, at that 5. And the Lover's card, I don't want to give it short shrift, but I just want to say that what the choice that you made was not hard, but it was divinely supported for your greater growth.
Agreed. I would agree on that one. It was a long time coming, so to speak. But I knew the impact of when it occurred, right? I knew what was going to happen, and I kind of avoided it for a very long time, probably longer than I should have.
And because you can't be responsible for someone else's solidity.
Correct. Yes. Or happiness, which is kind of, or like that. I had to be responsible. Exactly. I had to own my own happiness and be responsible for my own happiness.
Chivalry does not extend that far, It's like, well, a happy life, happy wife, but you can't take it so far that it's unhappy husband, happy life. That doesn't work Correct. Either, Yeah. So not so easy, because the spiritual path would have you stay in a more orthodox interpretation.
Yes.
And you have 3 children?
Yeah, three boys. Yes.
3 boys. So I think you are lamenting the impact this has had on them, as well as on yourself, as in this card, looking at these 3 fallen cups. Also, the loss of your opportunity to connect with them during the separation years, where they had to react as children or as young men, as your son did, who said what he said. But they had to go through their process, and you had to go through yours, and she had to go through hers, whatever that is, which apparently required a lot of support.
Yes.
And that's probably what you were holding off on inflicting on anyone, and you inflicted it instead on yourself for a long time. And that wasn't sustainable.
No, it's not. No, not at all. Yeah, bottling up everything, just suppressing it, pushing it down, and
in order for her not to fall apart.
Right. And using alcohol to do that, using a lot of alcohol to do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that you could feel and not feel at the same time.
Yeah. Feel the numbness. Right. Feel the numbness. I will say that being aware of what I use alcohol for over the last few years, encouraged me to stop drinking. And I haven't had a drink since December 31st of last year. And it has not using alcohol has allowed me to experience those emotions without hindrance.
Wow. So this then has been your year of really feeling it.
Yeah. And the first time I was not using alcohol to, enhance the sadness. So it made it so depressing, right? So when you're depressed, you drink, you'll be more depressed. And so, not recognizing that, understanding it, and knowing what I was using alcohol for really helped me quit and just really just sit with my emotions, sit with my feelings, and understand that they are there to guide me, not to oppress me.
Well said. Well said. Annie Grace has an interesting book. I think it's called The Naked Mind, about her scientific / experimental way of dealing with alcohol use, which is not so abstention oriented. It's very interesting, but it is very much about discovering what it is that you're using it for and why, and then being honest about what its effects are, and do you want those, and just being very rational about it. So hats off to you for for being willing to feel it, because most people can go an entire lifetime without being willing to engage that. And because obviously it's not such a great feeling. We can look at that right now. And that black is a kind of color of Saturn, which feels like limitation, which feels like oppression, which feels like all those things that you had inflicted on yourself, and you're now looking back on that. And or which the circumstances, I don't want to say that. So it's not, again, no blame, all forgiveness. It's all just perspective. And now perhaps is an opportunity to take a breath and turn around and see what remains and what other feelings are there to be had. Because I think that the penance has been done, and forgiveness is going to start with you. And if I may indicate, just the virtue of the choice that you made is indicative of your bravery, because not only are you bucking your own upbringing, you're bucking the system, you're finally willing to inflict hurt on someone, that not inflict hurt, to let someone feel that what they've needed to experience for a while, but what you've been shielding them from,
okay,
and yourself from, and all of those things. And that can, I believe it is an opportunity now for you to have a look at the other side of things. We had a friend of mine, it was like this boat ride that we took, that you could have had a slot because somebody else bowed out, but it always looks different when you're coming back from when you're going out. And you're like, is this the same route we took? You never see what's behind you, because you've probably seen that on scoutings you've done and on your hiking and things like that, right? So it is time to turn around and see things from the other perspective, to see what does remain for you, to see what emotional reality might be out there for you as you rebuild and as you embark to cross that bridge again, to go home again, to recapture your castle.
Funny you said that, because my family does have a family castle in England called the Rising Castle.
Wow.
Owned by a different family. You know, we lost control of that probably in the, I don't know, 1500s, who knows.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about forgiveness, and, you know, talking about that Orthodox and the forgiveness within Orthodox, is that we're taught to go forgive other people, right? And what I learned was, for me to be free, I had to forgive myself.
Yes.
It wasn't about forgiving other people. It was completely about forgiving myself. And once I did that, the emotional freedom I had after that was phenomenal.
Wonderful. And that's an ongoing process.
Continuing, and then, of course, every day.
Yes. And if indeed we are in that champagne fountain notion of things, we are aspects of God, because we are not created by, but emanated from God. If we are that spark of God looking to return to it, to source, then that capability, that capacity, that requirement is of us. We are the ones who have the power to do it. And if we don't, it will never happen.
Yeah.
So that must start with us. And it can be affirmed and confirmed by other people on the outside who can say, yes, by the way, remember that you are indeed forgiven. And you may forgive yourself, please, as the first and most important step towards turning around and seeing what is now for the next part of your life, because you're probably like 3/5 of the way through your life right now.
A little bit, yeah, I am.
Something like that, you know. Shall we say, well, let's go for the 100 years, you know, why not? So, and let's take a look at the King of Swords in this future position. So do turn around. It is now an opportunity for you to pivot, to turn around, and to pick up the sword again. The sword of your intellect, the sword of your power, the sword of your masculinity, the sword of your attractiveness and viability and whatever it is that you desire to do. It's in your court right now. And it's interesting to me that the wand that you're leaning on, that staff that you're leaning on, that 9 card is pointing to this corner, shall we say, up to that.
Hesed.
To Hesed, interesting, because I was thinking it was pointing a little further up to
Hokmah, sorry.
Yeah, both. They're both on the right sides. We're checking out cheat sheets. To looking up towards Hokmah is that staff, but then the King of Swords is pointing the other way towards Bina, which is now pointing to both the masculine as well as the feminine aspects of the very high forms of deity.
Okay.
And both of those pathways are crossed by the Empress, but you have the Emperor pathway is on that 9 of Wands card, and then the King of Swords is this Lover's pathway, which is fascinating in terms of the Kabbalistic stuff on here. So we'll show you a diagram of that in a moment, but that's a really cool graphic aspect of this reading. Yeah, you want to show us that now, Kefri? Go ahead.
Yeah. There it is.
So this is a very busy little diagram of the Tree of Life, but those 2 red and pinkish pathways that he's tracing with the arrows now are the path of the Emperor, and the path of the Lover.
There we have the Lovers,
and both of them are going to the heart of the Tree of Life, which is where the Christ consciousness would live. Which is the anchoring point of how we. So this is kind of, I'm going to get real heady right here, but the Tree of Life is kind of a depiction of a pathway back to deity. If we had been emanated forth before in a particular structure, but because of our imbalance, shattered our connection, as we try to rebuild our connection and the source tries to rebuild its connection with us, this structure has more solidity to it. And it's anchored with that 6. And that 6 is number 1, the number of the Lover's card, as well as the center point and pivot balance point of the suits, the 1 to 10 of the suits, the ace being the seed, and then the 2 to 5 and the 6 to 10. But that it's a balance point of the entire Tree of Life. And it's the anchor point up the middle, because that's kind of the pathway you want to take up the middle. The pathway up the middle, to your point, Paul, is anchored by the World, who's a very hermaphroditic or both male and feminine figure. The Temperance card, who looks very feminine but could be a man. And then this High Priestess figure, who is very feminine but is a very yin to the Magician's yang. But the feminine aspect is very much a part of this central pillar or the path up. So your sense that it's that important is true, and yet it shouldn't take priority, nor should it make you feel lesser than by valuing the masculine. The masculine must be valued, and you will be stronger to value yourself the way you were raised to value it and the way the military raised you to value it. Stand strong in that, and then balance it with the beautiful femininity that you're bringing in now. Do not try to lose that. Build upon it. Build upon it. Okay. So, and that's the King of Swords, because let's look at the Queen of Swords, Kefri, if you don't mind. And I'm going to show you a difference in the Queen here, to the point of integrating versus replacing. Notice that the Queen of Wands in her, let's say her, because it's a feminine figure, she is very one-sided. So she's about decisiveness and directionality and clarity and no bullshit and all that kind of stuff. But notice that she's very rigid and one-sided. Whereas the King, when we look at the King, which is what's upcoming for you, he has more balance. He's looking at its full face. It is full of butterflies of transformation and air of thought, and then the mitigating circumstances and the understanding and wisdom, which is the feminine aspect of wisdom that his sword is pointing to. So the King integrates that feminine aspect of wisdom, even as he embodies a very masculine mastery of the world and of the thought process. So you may step fully into your masculinity as well as your creative femininity in this King of Swords figure, as well as that Emperor figure, because both of them are informed by the feminine. In their illustration, both with a sword here, as well as with the eyes of the Emperor, they are both fully informed by the feminine, even though they look so masculine, as you are.
Okay.
As masculine as you are, as masculine as your heritage and your training and your everything has been, you are now balancing all that and becoming an extremely whole human. And you may look back on everything you've done as being a testing ground to show how strong and beautiful you are. And as you move forward, trust yourself to make the right decisions and to know that you have considered the needs of the feminine and that within yourself, whether in accommodating it, oppressing it, suppressing it, integrating it, whatever. You've been dealing with that forever and ever and ever. And we're not even talking about your mama yet. So you've been accommodating the ladies for quite a while. And now there's a Kali that needs to come out of you to balance that warrior man, to really come into your full thing. That's the sense that I'm getting, Kefri, and that's good. It's gonna be a little scary, but it might be really cool.
I think Kefri's agreeing with you on that one.
What's that?
I think Kefri's agreeing with you on that one.
Okay, and so that's where I'm going to leave it right now. So I'm just going to say to you, you do not need to act. You do not need to take any fabulous, great actions to incorporate and understand the feminine. You have been doing that for quite a long time, and your critical mind has been analyzing it all this time. So don't let anyone give you shit about feminism and blah, 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 blah. Just say, yeah, whatever. Because you're past that. It's not about masculinism or feminism. You're now into holism, and that's who you are. And so no apologies, no regrets, all forgiveness, all success. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. There you go.
It's funny because you mentioned the feminism. Back in 2021, we had an online men's group. We're all meeting. And this gentleman, one of the guys, he talked 20 minutes about feminine energy, masculine energy, the balance between the two. And in that 20 minutes, I learned more about men and women than I did in 20, 30 years.
Wow.
It was eye-opening. Eye-opening.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to hand off to Kefri now. No, by the way, when we looked at that Kabbalistic Tree of Life and when we looked at those suits, I tend to read kind of down here in the day-to-day earthly realm, but we've been reading kind of in the psychological realm and the spiritual. So, and that's what Kefri's going to do. So we're trying to model a Kabbalistic process of working our way up the tree to see how the patterns play out in the physical, in the emotional, so the physical, the thought realm, the emotional realm, and the spiritual realm. And that's kind of the way we're looking at this now.
Okay.
Thank you, Alison. And I will say there is a wholeness in this reading, and it is proven with, I will come to the hidden words in this later, but it is proven because it is mirroring the cards that you will see in a minute. But it's like we have been saying it before, I said it before, that nine of wands here, you are building a foundation and you have been gone through a lot of things in life and you have been bruised by them, but they have also shown a way through problems and through things of dark nature, actually, both inside of yourself and in the world around you, and also in your work, seeing other cultures and so on. And you are building a foundation from this, actually, and it's so beautiful because this is the 9 and here we have the 6, and if we turn around the 9 we get the 6, and the Lover's card here is what was what started it, I think, inside of you for real, and that was breaking up that Alison has already been into. But there was something happening on a deeper plane here, I also think, because I think that your masculine identity and your feminine identity got to know each other better by breaking up from that relationship. And
Okay.
you also got a divine support by that angel up there that Alison has been saying also. And that angel is actually named in the secret words that we will come to in a minute, because that angel is what is providing you with information, I believe. And as Alison also has been into, you have been going through a lot of dark things in your personal process, and you told us about the alcoholism and so on, and that is in this card actually. And Alison has already been into it. It's Saturn here, and it's something more here also. Those fallen cups give a bit of a deeper hint actually, that you shouldn't look for cause and effect, and you shouldn't look for polarization, because that is the wrong way to go in your process now. What you should look for now is gender of a feminine nature and a masculine nature, and also understand vibration in love, in both love and in life. And that it is changing. Life is changes actually, and that knowledge will take you over that bridge actually, and over your emotions, so you can turn around and look at those two unfilled cups actually. And that will give you the determination of the King of Swords that Alison has also been talking about. And that sword is, as we have been saying, pointing to the Sephira of Bina. And Bina is Saturn, but it is also a feminine thing in there, a sort of a feminine Saturn, femininity. And that is what you have been experiencing, and what you also need to not be afraid of meeting actually, that dark energy. And you also need to meet it to understand it actually, because behind it is light. And the cautionary card here, the Sun, I read that like, don't try to figure out what the light that is basking on you, because light is basking on you. Don't try to figure out the meaning of it. Don't look into it deeper at this moment. Just accept it and feel that you get stronger with it actually. And there is also a Sun in the Lover's card, and that Sun is a bit more concrete actually than and whole than the Sun in the Sun card, because that has a separate rays here, but here you have like circles in circles actually. And you also have this angel with red wings, that is the Mars energy, because the Mars energy is in this, of course, with the Emperor. And that is also an advice here. Learn to understand the Mars energy. Learn to understand the secrets of the Mars energy, and not going to a sort of a red light immediately aggression, but feel when the red light comes, and feel the warning, so to speak, and ask it what it is, and try to take it down, because you can do that actually. And there is a card that is in hide here actually, because we have Saturn here, and we have Saturn in in the 5 of cups here, and then we have Mars here in this card, but we also have Mars in the 5 here, taking us to the Sephira of Gevura actually, and there is a card between the Saturn spot and the Mars spot, and that is the Chariot card, and that is the victory card, the card that gives the divine energy so you can take them and explore and work with them. So there is a hidden gift in this reading actually. And there is a lot going on here, and it's a very beautiful reading, and the secret words here make it even more beautiful actually, because looking at the major arcana cards from up to down, and I think that is the way how you look to higher worlds and divinity power, and that secret word here is actually secret. And it's like, you know, that there is something to explore there, that there is something to untangle and to take in and to understand, even if we cannot understand it fully as a human being. And there is also a name here, and if you translate that name, it means sun on the earth. And that is actually what you are, because you are working in this world and you are understanding this world, but you are taking in higher energies and letting them help the world and letting them help you as well. And also it helps higher worlds also when you balance that thing, so to speak. And that is, again, it's the 9, the foundation, going up to the beauty of the balance spot in the tree of life actually, the 9 getting to be a 6. So that is in here actually. And there is another word here also, and that is mystery, because this is exploring the mystery of life, and that is what you are doing actually. And looking what you get from down from down to up, so to speak, how you look at it when you are looking at these divine energies. That is there is words here, and one of them is splendor, glow, radiance, shine, pomp, luster, be lambent and brighten. So you are surrounded by a lot of light actually. I don't think you understand how much light is around you. And also
That's
yeah.
So because on Thursday I was surrounded by a lot of light.
Yeah,
On Thursday,
you brought a lot of light. You brought the light.
And there is also a word here that is the foreign or the stranger or the unfamiliarity. And that is also because you meet that in the world, and it's not always you understand it, but you really work to understand it actually. And then we have the name of the archangel in the Lover's card actually, because that is Archangel Ratziel, and he is the provider and keeper of the secrets of God actually. And I think that this energy that comes into you has secrets in it that you should untangle actually, to understand more of your mission also. And then there is another group of words here that resembles totally with you, as you have told us, because those words are thin, skinny, lean, slim, slender, meager, mesalent, meager, peaky, and spare. And that, I think, is the process you have gone through, getting rid of the alcoholic dependence, actually. So it's a lot of beautiful things in here, actually, that resembles with each other. So what I was saying from the beginning is that it's a wholeness in this reading. It's like it's mirroring itself over and over again to show that this is beauty, this is balance, actually, and you work with that as a life mission. And I stop there. Thank you.
It's interesting that you mentioned exploring, because I do have several trips planned for next year. I am planning on going to Japan next year and also going back to the Middle East. So again, exploring and discovering, discovering more about me and where I fit in. But you mentioned that my direction, my path was laid out, and that's that's going to be part of it.
Yeah, and we have a seventh card here also, and that is another 6. It's the 6 of Pentacles. So there it is.
So this is a balancing. This is also going back to the rest easy. You are forgiven. It's all good. I didn't go to the Sun as opposed to the Emperor with the recommendations against and for in this. What I see this is, do not see yourself as a child. See yourself as a capable being, very embodied in his throne with all rights to be there. So it's time for you to so not only recapturing the castle, but also recapturing your throne, your role, your authority. Step into it with confidence because you're trustworthy. Your viewpoints are trustworthy. You can be depended upon to consider things deeply.
Okay.
Whatever martial intentions you have, however tendencies you might have to go OFF or react in ways that you were trained to react, you though you are capable of those things, you can also control them. So that in that way you are trustworthy. And this card is an interesting balance because it also it shows some distinction between this. So there's a certain amount of karmic generosity that will come to you in terms of results of your labors, but there's also another thing for you to not feel guilty about, which is that if you are given to and others are not, that there is still justice in that. Because if you look at the cloak, for example, of he who is begging under the scales there, he hasn't patched his cloak. What you give him is kind of gonna fall away anyway. And so that's why the scales of justice are balancing to give to the other who is in need right now. So if indeed there is some in your perception an imbalance that more coins, let's say on the left, are coming to you versus to someone else, or there's a great that's okay, that is within the larger balance of things. And if you're the one in the middle and you are deciding to give your energies to some but not to others, that's a legit decision too, because you cannot be putting your energy, you can't be pouring into a vessel that is full of holes. And so that also is a selection of who you would take on as a client, as who you would decide to help, as what businesses you would decide to support. You can't be supporting a business that's doing stupid things. But you can, right? And so there's all of this trust in yourself in terms of your wisdom to be able to determine these things, and also trust in the larger justice of things to provide for you. Jeffrey, what do you see in this card?
It's another wholeness here now, because I have been talking about the 9 being a 6, and we had the 6 in the Lovers, but we know that is a path in the Tree of Life. But here we have the 6 in the beauty spot in the Tree of Life, and also it is in the world of Atsaya. It is our earthly word, actually, and that goes back to that secret word here also, son of earth, because you are working very balanced, standing on the ground with both of your feet. Actually, you are not flying around on a cloud with loose ideas. You have very very concrete ideas how you want to tackle things. Actually,
I do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that is in here, and also the receiving, taking, and giving. Also, the balance of that, as Alison also have been saying, is in this also. And also, what I was saying before, that you shouldn't look for cause and effect, and you shouldn't go for polarization, getting caught in either side of a thing or a scale or something. But this card harmonizes that, actually.
Okay.
So you are on your way to a complete harmonizing of all the hermetic energies that I have been talking about, actually.
Okay.
So it's beautiful.
Cool.
So that's the tarot flow. That's how we entertain ourselves around here.
That was good. No, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
y'all doing this.
Yeah, it would be our pleasure if you wanted to come back sometime so we can have
I'd
a
love
chance
to.
stuff. That would be nice. I would
Yeah, I would
like
love to do that. I'd like to see what flows, in a few months, to see what changes and what's yeah.
Beautiful. So I thank you so much for being here with us today, Paul. If you were going to give words of advice from your vast experience, any words of advice for someone to pass on that have been helpful for you in your life, what philosophies are key for you?
I think slow down is one of them. And I years ago, I did an icebreaker speech for Toastmasters, and and part of it was I talked about slowing down, and I actually kind of threw in shaving and guitar playing somehow in that, and slowing down. But slow down, and for me, it's like picking my guitar up and playing a little bit, right? And it's just find that creative outlet that gives you your energy back to you. Because for me, it's like creativity is music and writing. Journaling is my way of creativity and getting stuff out and letting that flow. So slow down, write your thoughts down, and go have some fun and play some music. Even if you don't know how to, just figure it out.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I so appreciate your making the time to hang with us today, because it was a last minute thing. And
I appreciate it. No, this is good. Alison and Capri, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure. All right, Paul, we'll see you again next time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on the Tarot Flow Show. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.